Have you ever heard of a king so broken, so disturbed, that his court feared him more than his enemies did? A man who ruled a kingdom, yet couldn't rule his own mind. A monarch who shocked the world. Not with war, not with power, but with something far more bizarre. This is the twisted, forgotten story of Christian VII of Denmark. The king who became a joke, the puppet who played with himself, the masturbating monarch. Christian VII was born in 1749, destined to be king of Denmark and Norway, but from the very start, something was wrong. His mother died when he was just a toddler, and his father, King Frederick V, paid him little attention. Instead of love, the young prince was handed over to a series of harsh tutors. None crueler than Christian was often locked away, denied affection, and beaten for showing emotion. The boy didn't learn to lead. A man who believed in breaking a child to build obedience, Revendlo didn't teach with books or patience. He used whips, humiliation, and cold silence. He learned to fear. And when children are treated like animals, they grow into creatures no one can control. At just 17 years old, Christian ascended the throne after his father's death. He'd mimic people's voices, mock foreign dignitaries, and wander the halls muttering to himself. He was young, unprepared, and already unraveling. Ministers found him doing it during council meetings. He was caught in his chambers, in carriages, even once at a diplomatic dinner. Almost immediately, courtiers noticed strange behavior. The king would burst into laughter during serious meetings. But what alarmed everyone most was what he did in private, or worse, in public. Christian VII developed an uncontrollable habit, compulsive masturbation. It wasn't a secret. No place was sacred. If Christian couldn't control himself, if he became a public embarrassment, Denmark's power would crumble. The doctor who became King Struensee was a German physician, intelligent, ambitious, and charming. At first, he was just there to treat Christian's erratic behavior, but soon he saw opportunity. He gained the king's trust, became his closest advisor, then his puppet master. With Christian distracted, Struensee began ruling Denmark in his name. He pushed through hundreds of Enlightenment reforms, banning torture, promoting free press, improving healthcare, but not everyone celebrated. The Danish nobility hated him, and they hated him even more when another scandal broke. The queen and the lover, but her husband, Christian, was no husband at all, spent nights roaming brothels or locked in his room in strange ecstasy, and rumors became undeniable truth. Queen Caroline Matilda, Elizabeth's sister, an English princess, had come to Denmark in a political marriage. He ignored her, isolated and humiliated. Caroline turned to the only man who still acted sane at court, Struensee. Soon, whispers turned to rumors. They were lovers. Some even claimed their affair produced a child. Not the king's child, but Struensee's. For the nobles, this was the final outrage. Madness in the palace. As Struensee grew bolder, Christian became wilder. He would strip naked and run through the halls, howling like an animal. He once constructed a bizarre torture device, not to punish others, but for himself. Guards were instructed to tie him down and whip him. A mix of masochism and mental collapse. He began smashing mirrors, attacking servants, laughing at funerals. Denmark was no longer ruled by a king, but by chaos. In 1772, the storm broke. Conservative nobles, backed by Christian's jealous stepmother Juliana Maria, staged a coup. Struensee was arrested in the dead of night, dragged from his chambers, tortured, and forced to confess to adultery and treason. He was publicly executed, his right hand chopped off before his head fell to the axe. Queen Caroline Matilda was exiled from Denmark, separated from her children, and died in shame just 3 years later. And Christian, he was left alone. The Hollow King stripped of any real power, Christian became a ghost inside his own palace. He was still king in name, but no longer in mind or in spirit. The rest of his life was a quiet tragedy. Wandering the halls, whispering nonsense, staring into empty rooms, he lived until 1808. Long after his reign had ended in all but title, a kingdom recovered. Real power passed to his son, Frederick VI, who ruled Denmark in his place. Under Frederick, Denmark stabilized, the reforms Struensee had begun were revived, this time under legitimate authority. But the name Christian VII remained a dark stain in royal history, a cautionary tale of how trauma, power, and madness can twist a man beyond recognition. Madness or misunderstood. Was Christian VII truly insane? Modern historians suggest he may have suffered from schizophrenia, porphyria, or severe trauma-induced psychosis. But in the 18th century, there were no names for such things.